I haven't really been looking forward to doing this, but everybody's been asking me for my testimony, and I've been thinking about where I should begin, but I guess I'll go back to my childhood. I was raised Baptist, and I was probably baptized at the age of probably about 10 or 11, and I can still remember bringing my friends to Sunday school and asking them to go up and accept the Lord and stuff, so that kind of gave me the way I was. If I accepted something, I wanted to share it with everybody that I could. And then as I went along, then I went through high school, graduated when I was 17, left home, went in the military, and went to Vietnam. And that's an experience that, still haunts me to this day. I still suffer both mentally and physically because of it. But the Lord has also preserved me to where I am today. And as we went through life, I met Phyllis, and it's funny how we met, because after I got out of the service, I was drinking real heavy and stuff, and so she was a bartender, came into the bar where I was working as a bouncer, and we met, and that was on a Tuesday. And never seen each other until Friday that week. And then after that, we was never apart. And we got married 3 months later, and been married for 43 years now. And so the Lord has really blessed us that we're still together because of the rough life that we had when we first started, because I was a real heavy drinker. And when I was drinking before I met Phyllis, because I was working as a bouncer and a bartender, I used to walk around with a .32 in my back pocket all the time for self-defense and stuff. And so I was mean, I was nasty, and I would fight at the drop of a hat. You looked at me cross-eyed or said something about Vietnam, you'd more than likely find yourself picking yourself up off the floor. And, they always told me, it says, dynamite comes in small packages, so when I exploded, I exploded. And there was no holding me back. And so that's how far I've come and how the Lord's really touched me. And then when my drinking days, and Phyllis would always drag me to the altars and pray that the Lord would take the drinking away from me, and I'd pray too. But it wasn't until she could never understand why the Lord wouldn't do it. But my prayer was that I wanted to be able to control my drinking and still have a drink and be able to stop. And the Lord don't answer them kind of prayers. You just got to realize that when He answers a prayer is when you are totally 100% surrendered to Him, then He'll do it. And mine was a miracle, because I just sat on the porch with Phyllis that one day and asked the Lord, I says, I've tried to quit, I can't quit. I'm giving it to you. And if you take the drinking away from me this day, I'll serve you. And at that instant, the desire was gone. Not only did He take the drinking, but He took the smoking and the meat eating at the same time. Because my experience in Vietnam with the Agent Orange, if the Lord hadn't have done that when He did it, I wouldn't be here today because of my health. And so the Lord has preserved me. And then when we went to camp meeting that year, I knew I needed to do something for the Lord, but I didn't know what it was. So the literature evangelists were up there and talking about literature evangelists. I said, oh, I can do that, because then I don't have to talk to anybody, because my nickname at that time was Mumbles, because I didn't talk very loud and stuff, because I didn't figure anybody was interested in what I had to say, so I just kind of mumbled along and didn't really, care what, whether they understood or not. It's just, but when I got into the literature work, I didn't realize what was involved. And I was in for a shock, because then I realized that I had to talk to people. And so, but I knew that the Lord had called me to do it, and so I stayed with it and kept going. And the first month I did it, I worked for 3 hard weeks and never sold anything. And I was about ready to give up. And Phyllis kept asking me every day I came home, did you do any good? I said, no. And then that night I came home, I sold my first book. It was just a single volume, Uncle Arthur's Bedtime Stories. And she said I was gleaming from ear to ear. But what was amazing was that Lord used that lady to tell me, after I got done canvassing her and she bought the book, she says, whatever you do, son, don't leave this work. So the Lord was re-encouraging me that He had called me to do a work and that I needed to stay with it. And I stayed with it for almost 18 years. And then my health got to where I couldn't do it anymore. But the Lord still continued to bless. And to this day, my heart's still in the literature work. And, if anybody wants to know anything about, the Lord or anything, well, here's a book. And the Lord blessed me during the literature ministry to where we had, almost 14 baptisms. We're not supposed to look at numbers, but that's one of the greatest thrills there is to meet somebody that doesn't know the Lord, be able to introduce them to the Lord, study with them, and to see them get baptized. And I'm sure you've experienced that a lot, Adrian. And that's the greatest blessing that the Lord can bestow onto anybody, is to be able to bring somebody down that path. And so we stayed with that, and then we moved quite a bit. And I was thinking about my childhood. Most people you see, they grow up, they have a childhood friend that they've had known most of their life. Me, I think we moved about 7 or 8 times by the time I graduated high school. So I never really got no close relationship with anybody. So it's always been hard for me to have a close relationship because I figured I'd be moving. And so Phyllis and I moved a lot because of the literature work. I've lived in 7 different states and worked in all of them. And then one day I get a text from my son. He says, Dad, look at all these cities. And I looked at him and he says, yeah, they're the highest crime rates in the United States, and yet you've worked in every one of them. And so the Lord blessed me and protected me. Never forget the one time I was working in Camden, New Jersey, where the Lord was definitely protecting me because I had a couple of lead cards in a section of town, and we went in there. And when we knocked on the door, the lady looked at us, looked outside, and says, what are you doing here? I said, well, you sent us a card in. We come here to give you their information. Get in here, get in here. We got inside. Why? What's the matter? You shouldn't be down here. Why? The Lord called us. He says, no, because after dark, the cops and the fire department will not come into this section of town. It was so bad. But the Lord called us in there to do it, and we did it. And the Lord always blessed us, and through my years at co-porter work and different things, I've seen things that no other person should see on the streets. When you're on the streets every day, you see things that you just don't realize, most people don't realize what's going on out there. And so the Lord definitely protected us as we was doing the literature work. And so it's just, it's just amazing the way the Lord did it, and especially with my drinking, I still suffer a lot because of it, and my anger issues, sometimes they seem to creep back up, and I have to curtail them and tell them, get down. Lord, you need to, I'm still dealing with that, so the Lord's still helping me to take care of that. But it's amazing the way the Lord works in somebody's life, and especially in mine. And He always blessed us and taking care of us, and I don't know, it's just, when you think back, there's so much, what do you bring out? And it's just, I'm just so thankful that the Lord has brought me to where I am, and that I'm still able to go and do things and be able to still witness for Him. And that's the biggest thing that we need to do, is to realize that when the Lord calls you to do something, you need to give 100%. And where you lack, He will give you the rest that you need to continue to go on. And we don't have to worry about it, because through the years doing the literature work, I've had so much faith, and so I've learned to live on faith. And so when things happen, well, I worry about it, but then I stop and realize, look at where the Lord's done for you and where He's brought you. And so we just got to continue to realize that when He calls us, go forward, and believe in Him and have the faith to trust. And that's the hardest thing there is to be able to trust somebody that you've never met. But you can see what He's done in your life and what He's done for you. So I don't... Oh, and then right after God delivered me from drinking, my dad died. And my family's all heavy drinkers. And I went back there, and I didn't have the desire to drink, and they were all surprised. And, you know, it was really, I was a good witness for them. And so, Lord, you know, when the Lord does something, He does it good. We don't have to worry about falling back into it if we don't want to, because He'll give you the strength to overcome anything and everything, as long as you keep Him in the back of your mind that through Christ I can do all things, and we don't have to worry about trying to do it ourselves, and just give it to Him, and He'll do it for us. And that's like one of my favorite scriptures is Isaiah 43, 1-3. Fear not, for when you walk through the valley, you know, with the rivers, they will not overflow thee, and with the waters, they will not overcome thee, and through the fire. And I read those, and it just gives me encouragement that no matter what we go through, as long as we keep our eyes fixed on the Savior, He's going to get us through that, and we're going to be able to see Him that day that's coming soon. And that's what I can't wait for, is because to get out of this old sin-sick, miserable world that we've created, and let the Lord create it all new and be able to see them flowers that don't die. And that's really going to be something there, is not to see death again in anything, because like Reuben was telling us the other night, you know, we're waiting for the new moon. And as soon as it showed, he said the crickets started. The animal world is more in tune to God than we really are. And so if we just looking at nature, we can see how God is really still working. And if we just keep our eyes on that, and that's the best witness for God, is the nature itself and the way He takes care of things. So I don't know what else to say, but just have a blessed day, and thank you.